You kind of get appointment identity, and because I was quote unquote a special case being pregnant while doing chemo and all the treatment, which I had 4 or 5 specialists tell me that I should not continue with the pregnancy and I should abort Luke, and wouldn't survive to deliver him, and based on that my pregnancy or my cancer fed off hormones and I was pregnant. Given that special case, I was just in the hospital so many times a week getting my PICC line in and out and tested and blood work done and ultrasounds, which was fabulous, but also too, being 29 at the time, being younger than the typical demographic for breast cancer.
Greetings, hello, good day, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada. Today I welcome 2 very special guests to the show, Luke Webb and his mother Becky. They founded a company called Livn-Givn, which is a lifestyle clothing company that gives back. In 2010, Becky discovered that she was pregnant with Luke, and it literally turned the lives of the family around when they had to return to Kamloops from Alberta. Soon after this miraculous news, Becky discovered that she had an aggressive form of breast cancer, and doctor after doctor told her to abort the pregnancy. But Becky felt very differently about it. Today we're going to discuss that wild journey and the birth to Livn-Givn. Okay, Luke, Becky, welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate your time today. It's really great to have you here. Becky, how you doing?
Good, thanks for having us.
Of course. Luke, how are you?
Good.
Excellent. Well, we're going to kick off a little bit of the story. So, Becky, why don't you tell us a little bit about Livn-Givn before Luke, because it all kicked off there. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that story?
Well, we had tried to get pregnant with a second child for 4 years, and I accepted a job in Fort McMurray, and so I moved up there for the job. And when I got up there, long story short, found out I was pregnant with Luke and came home. But as things go, I found out also that I had breast cancer during that journey. And so on to surgery and chemo I went, and he was born with more hair than I had at the time. And so just through my journey and after that, he had some complications with his heart. We just decided that there were so many frustrations in the system, and we wanted to find a way to give back and help those who needed a hand up. Yeah. Amazing.
So during that period of time when you found out you were pregnant, so obviously this is like a 8-month, 9-month timeline.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that journey from finding out you were pregnant, because reading your blog, you've got that like 6-part of your blog, like, before Luke was born. I think it's 2011, 2010?
2011.
Yeah. That's when you were born, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got that period of time. So you mentioned that you noticed so many issues or complications with the health system. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and like 9-month journey? Because I know from reading that blog, you were, there was a period of time where you were in the hospital 3-4 times a week.
Yeah, that was, you kind of get appointment identity. And because I was quote unquote a special case being pregnant while doing chemo and all the treatment, which I had 4 or 5 specialists tell me that I should not continue with the pregnancy and I should abort Luke, and wouldn't survive to deliver him, and based on that my pregnancy or my cancer fed off hormones and I was pregnant. So yeah, given that special case, I was just in the hospital so many times a week getting my PICC line in and out and tested and blood work done and ultrasounds, which was fabulous, but also too, being 29 at the time, being younger than the typical demographic for breast cancer. Things like access to wigs, and at the time it was winter, so I just wore a toque, and I had no hair, so I kind of went with it anyways. But when I did want to try a wig to see how that would make me feel, I even went to the Canadian Cancer Society, like the daffodil one that everyone knows, and they didn't even know where I could get a wig. So everything was very disjointed. So that's just one example of the many things that we experienced, or I experienced, that you just kind of, when it looks good on paper, and there's so many campaigns out there for things, like all my friends were doing their haircuts for Pantene give back to wigs or whatever, and I couldn't find anything. Now the wig bank at Royal Inland is really nice. It's been redone in the last couple of years, but at the time, and just I know even more so with many things, and with Luke's heart journey, we just, you slip through the gaps. So we just wanted to, having kind of been there first, we wanted to,
right,
out of our frustrations, help other people not experience those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you live in BC, you were moving to Alberta, and you were doing some like routine tests for your work, and that's how you found out you were pregnant?
Yeah, I'm a truck driver by trade, so I was going up to run a concrete batch plant in the oil sands, and so through that you have to have drug and alcohol testing and different other tests, rigorous tests to be able to work on the oil sands. And so that's kind of, there was a little marker in one of the samples, and I thought, wait a minute, that seems like something else. And so sure enough, it found I was pregnant. Yeah. So then
that pregnancy made you move back to BC.
Well, that job was not pregnant friendly. I literally, that night I started driving the 16 hours back home because it just
wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And then from getting back to BC, finding out you were pregnant, and then can you tell us a little bit more about that initial like diagnosis and kind of how that worked?
Because, well, I felt the lump in my left breast months before, but I was 29 and it didn't run in my family, so I just hadn't had any kind of thought about breast cancer. So even though it was a bit of a weird lump, I didn't pay much attention to it. And so, the way things work, thankfully my doctor had wanted to do an ultrasound on my breast when I was doing my dating ultrasound for Luke, just to make sure breastfeeding was going to be okay and that it wasn't a cyst or anything that would impede breastfeeding. And then sure enough, that was it. The next week I had a mastectomy and I was on to treatment, and it was pretty quick. So,
and you mentioned in your blog as well that you had the medical advice during your pregnancy, probably pretty early on, that you should abort the pregnancy.
Oh,
right?
yeah. No, every single...
Like 5 doctors told you to do that.
Yeah, and because my family's in the medical field as well, a lot of them are more kind of family friends, and so they had best interests in mind, but we just, we roll a different way, and we just knew that things happen for a reason, so we just went with it, and we just knew we got what we got.
What did you know? Like you knew something else, right? Like you're having getting all of this advice, but you knew something.
Well, one thing
different.
Exactly, right? You have to go and kind of take all the factors, what you think, what you read, what you know in your gut, and also what's out there, and make your own decision, and faith. I mean, we go on faith of, it's the assurance of things unseen and insurance of what's hoped for and convictions of something not seen. So we just knew, I don't know, without a shadow of a doubt, that that's what we should do.
That's amazing. Yeah. And when you were going through chemo, was the response different from like nurses and doctors because you were pregnant? Because I'm assuming, I don't know, but that has to be pretty rare to be going through.
It was. My oncologist had been he'd been doing oncology in Kamloops for 8 years at the time, and he had never had a pregnant person, so he didn't even know how to treat me. He had to meet with a panel of other doctors out of Vancouver and Kelowna. Yeah.
And you went on the the Red Death. I can't remember what the name of it is. It adriamycin?
Cyclophosphamide, adriamycin. Yeah, it's a combination.
Yeah, like it's a significantly.
It's out of all the cancers, out of all the treatment, it's the worst one apparently.
And that's because of the type of breast cancer you had.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a really really hard one. So they kind of went at it with the biggest thing that they had.
Yeah.
What were the conversations with you, with the other doctors and things around, like when they're like, okay, this is so first of all, patient's pregnant, second thing is she has this particular type of very dangerous tumor, we have to go at it with this drug, which is called the Red Death for a reason. And then they talk to you about it, like obviously this is a complete unknown for all of them because they're having to think about 2 people really. Well,
they weren't actually, because they already told me that I'm stupid. In the nicest way possible, but not really. I'm very irresponsible, and that they weren't thinking of Luke at all because they didn't want me to have him. So that was all on my own accord. They really were just treating me as a normal patient with that aggressive cancer. So yeah, the one thing though that was I think the hardest thing was that as he grew, every time I had it, it was like clockwork. I knew exactly when how long I would get really, really sick after I had my treatment. it was a few hours after, and I kind of got to know how I would feel. But the worst thing was at that time as well, because Luke was inside me, I could feel him just kick and move and try to get away from that awful poison. And that was the part that just tore me as a mom, like knowing I had to do this and I decided this, but also that, I just remember that feeling too, that he would just kick and squirm and try and get away from this horrible...
Literally sitting in the clinic.
Literally burning his being, right? Like this, that was the part that was the most not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the, like, through your pregnancy, like when during the pregnancy is this really happening? Is it right at the beginning? Is it in the middle? Is it the end?
So it was the beginning of the second trimester is when chemo started, because I had to have surgery right away, and then 6 weeks after surgery, you can start chemo or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, based on your body and how.
So it was quite well into the pregnancy.
A couple months, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And the doctors, they weren't that pleasant with it. Were they thinking about, when they were giving you that advice, were they thinking about the baby? Were they thinking about you?
Oh, not the baby. No, because again, they didn't want me to have him.
Yeah. So they were basically just treating you.
Yeah.
Because it would be kind of
my
impossible.
Own discretion.
Yeah, of course. And did you have to sign anything?
Well, like anyone, you sign all these medical forms. You sign your...
Nothing special because of your situation?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's such a wild thing to even kind of think about, to go through pregnancies.
Well, when chemo is essentially stops things from growing, and this is a growing unit.
Certainly is. Still is.
Still, oh my gosh. So it was fascinating from just the whole medical perspective too, of that happening and him coming out full term and with more hair and, essentially fine.
Do you have a really positive, happy memory of engaging with the medical system during that time?
Well, being in the...
Because obviously they're just doing the best that they can with what they know.
I have so much... That's one thing that I've always had so much great experiences, and especially being in Canada. I mean, really, our healthcare system... it is what it is, and they're just human, right? Like everyone is just human beings, and so people really have to understand that. And as much as I was at the hospital, everyone was very nice to deal with.
Okay.
I mean, there was mishaps, like when I delivered Luke, and I was the special one, so I bless them, but I had the students, and one almost dropped Luke, bathing him, and all these different things when you're a new mom.
Right.
After that trauma, you're like, can you please not be in here?
Was the birth straightforward?
I
don't think any birth is straightforward, but
I think,
do you know what I mean?
both my boys were really long, and but I guess so.
Okay.
I was just really tired. It was a fatigue, tired after that, because chemo's progressive, and so I was wheelchair bound by the time I delivered Luke. I couldn't even stand. I was so exhausted.
So were you still doing chemotherapy treatment into the 8th, 9th month?
They wanted to stop 1 month beforehand to increase my white blood cells, just to make sure I had some energy.
Okay. Yeah. But you were wheelchair bound going into
pretty much
the last month of your pregnancy.
Yeah, I couldn't. My birthday was February, and I went to Vancouver, and Jeff had to push me in a wheelchair, my husband, around Science Center, because I couldn't walk.
Right.
Yeah, that was interesting. But.
And then did they have any special doctors in regards to Luke's condition, or Luke inside of you before the delivery?
No.
Just pretty standard care for that birth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then what happened after he was born?
Well, we continued on, and then he, at 2 years, a lot of babies are born with a little heart murmur. That's kind of typical, but usually it stops at about 2 years. That's why at your 2-year follow-up, they assess all that, and then his hadn't gone away, so then they did more testing and realized he had a few issues with his heart. And then on he went to open heart surgery at the age of 4. And now he has 3 cardiac abnormalities, but it doesn't really slow him down.
No.
That we just monitor and make sure. I mean, at some point he may they're assuming that he'll have to have surgery of some kind again, but we
wait and
just go
see.
flow.
Okay, amazing. Okay, Luke, you've been very patient over there. Appreciate that. So I'm going to bring you in. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Livn-Givn?
So when I was like little, like I would say like maybe around 6, 7 or 8.
Okay.
I'm pretty artistic. I just like to draw and paint for fun sometimes. And I just started writing like this, my initials, but it's like, but then I showed my mom and like she thought it was really cool. Like
Yeah, so you were doing some artwork, and is that what led to the logo?
Mm-hmm.
So that led to the logo.
Yeah.
What led to the idea of creating like the actual like charity, man? What's the charity do?
So,
Mum, you can jump in at any point if you want to.
Yeah,
no
well,
problem.
we are a for-profit business, but we donate a decent amount of proceeds. Everything goes towards a particular either family, directly to the family, our funds, and or to an organization of their choice. For example, this hoodie is the Liam hoodie, and Luke's friend Liam has Down syndrome, and so his family, the colors of the Down syndrome awareness are blue, white, and yellow. Mm-hmm. And so $10 from each sale goes towards, they chose Baskets of Love Support Society, Down Syndrome Support Society in Vancouver, which gives an intro basket to families that are new on the journey of Down syndrome. Yeah, so we really try to support local businesses and the small guys, so to speak, and just directly to families. One other hoodie that we have is the Sophia hoodie, and it goes directly to help children access funds for service dogs, because that's something that's not, again, filling that gap in the system, because service dogs are not covered for most of the part for children with those needs. And so they are not cheap. Well, yeah. So, I mean, it's the training and it's the proper dog that you need. You're upwards of $25,000, $30,000. So we just try and, whenever something comes up, we try our best to help and partner with the families and kids that need it.
That's awesome. Luke, why do you think it's important to give back to charities like that, to provide some money for them and some support?
Well, I think it's very important to give back a bit to them and to just help them, like give them a little helping hand and at least do the best you can.
Absolutely. I think that's a really pretty good philosophy for a lot of things. That's awesome. What have you learned about yourself during the time you started Livn-Givn? Have you learned anything? It's a tricky question.
Yeah.
It's a big question. Like, what's it been like working with your buddy with, the Down syndrome organization? What was it like?
Or any of the friends that come on the rides, like watching their faces, or that little boy last weekend.
So like with the last week, we did a car event with this little kid. I think he's like around 6, okay. And he has a muscle disorder, and it was just like he had so much energy. It was just like fun watching him. He was just like running around, and he was just.
So you guys create an event or something for that, or?
Well, we just piggybacked on an event that was happening, but we invited this family to come along, and a good friend of ours that helps us in Vancouver. She had knew this family, and the boy was just really excited. So just to see the smiles on their faces, that's the best
He's
part. Pretty excited, yeah.
Yeah, like I think giving back and doing charity work, or just, you know, helping your neighbor out is a really important thing to do, because it just, you know, how does for you, like, Luke, how did it make you feel watching that little kid smile and have like the day of his life? Like, how do you describe how that feels for you?
It makes me feel like really happy to see someone else feel that way.
Yeah, and that's a really nice thing to do,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and that's probably why you want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been fortunate to be in the receiving end of other like very generous events and happenings. So I know through that, Luke really knows that feeling, and to be able to pay that forward is really where life's at, right? Especially these days when people really need lots of hope.
Sure.
And a little bit more joy in life, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Luke, do you have any a message for people who are out there who might be struggling with some sort of condition in your experience? Do you have anything to say to those people?
I don't really know.
Okay, no worries. It's another tough question I'm giving you.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mum? Like, as a part of Livn-Givn, what message do you have to those children and those families that, you know, go through much?
I always say, just be your own advocate. Go with, I mean, it's great to listen to all things, but we know quote unquote science or the medical system can change, and everything is up for reevaluation. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, if you go on what is best for your family and yourself and in your gut, that's really going to be what's the best choice of action. Because people, you know, with great intention, when you're in something or you get a diagnosis like anything, people will come at you with conventional medicine, natural medicine, you know, suggestions, tips, all these, and ultimately at the end of the day, whatever decision, whether it's a combination of both or one or the other, that's going to be right, because it's going to be right for your family.
Yeah.
And so,
and all of that can be quite overwhelming,
and keep pushing, right?
Right?
If something, it doesn't sit right with you and it doesn't feel like that's the way it should be going, keep researching, keep pushing, because I think people are just human. And also always just walk in love, as much patience as possible, even if it's hard, right?
I think becoming part of a community and working with other people who are not necessarily going through exactly the same thing, but I think when we go through something really tough and scary, we sometimes choose to isolate ourselves a little bit. And things can be overwhelming, but like stepping out into that community and creating even creating a charity, which is creating connections out across the world, is a really powerful thing to do, and to be able to, you know, put smiles on faces of people who sometimes go through difficult things. I think that's really important. How much of your faith, Becky, was involved in everything?
Well, it is everything. Jesus for us is everything. From morning till night. And so that's just what keeps us going all day, every day. Yeah. Because
there would have been some really tough times, right? So
yeah, and I mean, like, you know, we don't have to know all the answers, because we know someone who does, and because of that, we can just completely still live with joy and moving forward, even if we don't always know what's going to be around the corner. So Beautiful. We have today, and we just gotta enjoy today, right? Yeah.
Love it. How can people connect with you? You guys got a website?
www.livn-givn.com or Instagram at where Livn-Givn.
Perfect.
And Facebook.
I'll put the show notes up so people can find that, check out more, and I'm going to share the blog links as well, because I found them very, very interesting. Are you writing them like in like real time?
No, I think I did a personal consistency challenge, if you will, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago or so, just to write every day for 365 days, you know, just doing something for 365 days. So I chose writing, and I believe that's when I wrote those, is within that time frame.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have you guys got anything else to add?
Well, we just really appreciate your time and having us and sharing our story and everything that you do.
Beautiful.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Well, I'll make sure that all the information to Livn-Givn, the website, is available on the show notes of the show. That is it for this week. We'll see you next week. This is Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada. We will see you next week.